And welcome back. This time around we're going to take a look at the weapon tile. And of course the best way to see a weapon tile is to see it in action. So let's go ahead and jump on here and grab up our idling weapon that's just waiting for us. We've got our little cannon launcher mounted on top of our tile guy. And in order to work it, we're just going to press our fire button and we can start launching some projectiles at the walls around us. Alright, we can see it's got a lot of parts and pieces going on, and it's what we're going to start taking a look at. We've got everything from the projectile itself to the explosions, the muzzle flashes, to the ejection shells, and even more things that can be added onto it. So let's take a peek at how all of this works. We'll go ahead and go back into the editor, and then we'll start looking at a couple of the pieces. And inside the editor, we can see that we've got our object in here. Let's go ahead and select on our weapon tile. And in our subpanel menu, we can see we've got a lot of different options and things that are going on. This is a tile, so it's going to have the basic properties of a tile. You could turn on your physics, your colliders, you could turn on all of your triggering options. You can adjust the color sets and whatnot, but the things we want to focus on mostly here are some of the weapon options. There's a lot of weapon options, so we're going to break this into maybe about 2 or 3 videos, and we're going to just start touching on different parts and pieces, because there's a lot of things you can do with it, and there's a lot of different type of weapons that you can make with it. So starting over here, I'm just going to touch on a couple of different ones and we'll jump through it. The first one that we've got is a weapon joystick type. And the weapon joystick type, this one basically allows you to pick what directions can this weapon fire. So for instance, we could do an 8-directional. An 8-directional will have us fire in all 8 directions. You could do a 4-directional, a horizontal, or a vertical. So depending on the type of weapon you've got, you may need to lock it into a certain direction. So for this one, we've got, of course, the left and right. But let's say we were to go in and say, let's do 8-directional. We can take a quick peek and see what that would do to it. So this time when we pick up our weapon, if we shoot, it's going to shoot the direction that we're going, but now we can actually shoot in all the different directions. And of course it doesn't quite work for this weapon, but it of course is an option that's available that you could play around with. So let's go ahead and go back into our scene. We'll go back into our weapon and we'll scrub down here just a little bit. So of course for this weapon we're going to hang on to our horizontal so that we just shoot the left and the right in the direction. And then let's go ahead and get into a couple of the fun parameters that we can play with. We've got everything from recharging to the hit points to the bullets, and the bullets themselves can have hit points, the impacts that it can have, reloading, all kinds of fun properties in here. Some of the ones that are fun to see are some of the projectile pattern type. The basic, of course, is just a single shot that comes out, and then you can adjust how quick it comes out, how often it shoots out. But we can also do things like patterns, so that if we wanted to do a pattern, we could use a shotgun style, we could use a dual spread, a dual alternating, machine gun style, a triple spread, a Gatling gun. So you can see how this can be all kinds of fun of just playing with some of the basic pattern types that are in there. Alright, we'll keep ours down to our doable single shot for Tile Guy here. And then we get into some of the other properties for the settings on our projectile. So you can do the count, how many get shot out at one time. You could go into the speed that it's being shot out at. If you want a nice fast shot, you could do a fast shot. If you want some spacing between them, you can set up the spacing between them. If you want randomness, you can set up how random are the shots coming out. We can have them all coming out at the same time, or we can change it up in there. So a lot of fun things you can do with that. We'll bump our speed back down to about 12 and our count down to 1. And then of course you can also play with your ping pong, your spread, your speed, and your repeat rate. And those are going to create some really interesting effects as you play with them. For instance, let's bump up our count again. we'll do a default spread of, let's say, 10. So we've got 10 coming out. And if we wanted to play with our ping pong effect, our ping pong speed, let's bump this guy up to there. There we go. You can see how we can start adjusting how it comes out and what it does. So this is an easy way of setting up, and we'll show in more detail with the bad guy characters that we have, but an easy way of setting up the sort of bad guy spread fire that comes out from them. All right, and that's just a peek at some of that. There's a lot of ways you can adjust these settings to create a lot of different effects. And we're going to head and move on down. One of the things that we take a quick look at too is going to be our shell. Inside of the weapon shell, this is a little ejection shell that comes out of your weapon if you want it to. And of course, all these are, you can enable them or disable them if you want. If you have something that's popping out of it, you can adjust where it comes out from, the offset on it, so whether or not it's in front of or behind as it comes out. You can adjust the scale of the object that comes out. So it could be something gigantic, or it could be something really tiny and small. It's more like a little shell from a little machine gun or something. Whatever the case might be, you've got the options to get it set up just the way you want it. And of course, adjusting the position so that if you wanted the position offset from your muzzle flare, which is the one thing we'll look at too, we can adjust it so it comes in or out one way or the other. And then we can go into the physics of the shell that comes out. So if we want that object to do a little bit more, for instance, we want it to have a little more force on the X or the Y, we can push it out further, change the direction left or right, or have it kind of coming just straight up and straight down. Then you've got your Y force, so if you just want it being pushed down, or if you want it pushed up higher. And then your torque is basically whether or not you want to rotate that object. It pushes it out with a little rotation to it, or if you just want it a little bit more straight. Okay, your other option, of course, is that you can do stay and disable. So the object is going to create a collider. It's going to land on whatever physics object is there, and then it's going to stay inside the scene, but then it'll disable the collider so that you can walk right through it. And then the last one for our shell, we've got our collider object. Of course, you could turn your collider object on. You can adjust the scale of the collider if you need to, and then you can change the position left, right, up, and down. And then here, it creates that collider, and then you have your options to basically say how long on the scene do you want it to stay before you turn it on or off, or do you just leave it on? All right, so that gets us through a couple of pieces there. Let's go ahead and take a look at one more option. We want to see kind of how do we say where does that projectile come out of? And the easiest way to do that is to go to your sockets so that you can see, well, where are those positions? And inside of Build a Game, we've set it up so that you have your eight directions that you can use. And you basically can choose the position that you want it to come out of. So for instance, on the active socket, we can just scan through these, and you can see how they highlight, and it's basically saying this is the active one. So we'll say the active socket number 2, and its position, I can change it front to back and up and down so that this determines where I shoot from. So for instance, let's say I move the position way up here, and then we'll go take a look at it. And when we grab up our weapon this time around and we shoot this direction, we still got our setting on that one, but then our shooting should come up from up top. There we go. So that's just saying, where is that actually happening? All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and head on back. And that gives you kind of a rough overview of a couple of the properties inside a weapon. We're gonna continue to take more of a look in the weapon and all the different things that you can do with it. And I hope you'll join us for the next one. Thank you very much.